In the world of professional wrestling, few territories left as lasting an impact as Mid-South Wrestling. From 1979 to 1986, this promotion revolutionized the business, launching careers, creating legends, and setting standards that would influence wrestling for decades to come. This is the story of Mid-South Wrestling. The story begins with one man, Bill Watts. A former football player turned wrestler, Watts had worked throughout the territorial system and understood the business inside and out. In 1979, he purchased the Tri-State Wrestling Territory, covering Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Mississippi. Watts had a vision: create wrestling that felt real, intense, and unpredictable. He wanted fans to believe what they were seeing wasn't just entertainment, but genuine competition with real stakes. Watts implemented a revolutionary approach. While other territories featured colorful characters and theatrical storylines, Mid-South emphasized athletic competition and hard-hitting action. The matches were stiff, the promos were intense, and the storylines felt authentic. Watts believed in long-term storytelling, building feuds over months and even years, creating emotional investment that kept fans coming back week after week. The promotion's home base was the Irish McNeil Boys Club in Shreveport, Louisiana, but Mid-South ran shows throughout the region. The Superdome in New Orleans became a legendary venue for their biggest events, regularly drawing crowds of 20,000 to 30,000 fans. These weren't just wrestling shows, they were cultural events that brought communities together. One of Mid-South's earliest breakout stars was Junkyard Dog. JD, as fans called him, became a phenomenon unlike anything wrestling had seen before. An African-American babyface in the Deep South during the early 1980s, Junkyard Dog transcended racial barriers and became beloved by fans of all backgrounds. His charisma was undeniable, his matches were explosive, and his connection with the audience was electric. The Junkyard Dog's feud with Michael Hayes and the Fabulous Freebirds became the stuff of legend. The Freebirds, a trio of long-haired rebels from Texas, were the perfect antagonists. Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Buddy Roberts brought rock and roll attitude to wrestling, and their battles with JYD filled arenas throughout the territory. The intensity of their matches and the genuine heat between the performers made every encounter must-see television. But Mid-South wasn't just about one star. Watts built a roster of incredible talent. Ted DiBiase, before becoming the $1 Million Man in the WWF, was one of Mid-South's top babyfaces. His technical skill and natural charisma made him a fan favorite, and his matches showcased the athletic style Watts championed. DiBiase's feuds with various heels demonstrated his versatility and star power. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was another Mid-South original. His tough guy persona and patriotic fervor resonated with audiences. Duggan's brawling style fit perfectly with Watts' vision of hard-hitting wrestling. His famous 2x4 became an iconic weapon, and his battles with the territory's top heels were consistently brutal and entertaining. The Fabulous Freebirds weren't the only legendary heel group in Mid-South. The promotion featured some of wrestling's most despised villains. Skandor Akbar managed a stable of monsters and rule breakers who terrorized the territory. Kamala, the Ugandan giant, brought an intimidating presence that terrified fans. One-Man Gang before his WWF run was a dominant force who crushed opponents with his size and power. Jake the Snake Roberts developed his psychological heel character in Mid-South. His methodical, cerebral approach to villainy was years ahead of its time. Roberts' promos were masterclasses in manipulation, and his in-ring psychology made every match compelling. The Snake, Damien, became one of wrestling's most famous props, adding an element of danger and unpredictability to every appearance. Butch Reed, the Natural, was another standout performer. His combination of athleticism and arrogance made him a perfect heel. Reed's feuds with the territory's top babyfaces were consistently excellent, showcasing his ability to work any style and tell any story. His later partnership with Jim Cornette added another dimension to his character. The tag team division in Mid-South was exceptional. The Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton, and Robert Gibson perfected the formula of the underdog babyface team. Their matches followed a template that became legendary. Morton would take a beating, The hot tag to Gibson would ignite the crowd, and the comeback would bring fans to their feet. This formula was copied throughout wrestling and remains influential today. The Midnight Express, managed by Jim Cornette, were the perfect heel team. Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey, later replaced by Stan Lane, were technically brilliant and ruthlessly effective. Their matches with the Rock and Roll Express are considered among the greatest tag team encounters in wrestling history. The chemistry between these teams was undeniable, and their feuds drew massive crowds throughout the territory. Mid-South's television production was ahead of its time. While many territories relied on simple studio shows, Watts invested in quality production. The commentary team, often featuring Boyd Pierce and later Jim Ross, provided professional, engaging narration that enhanced the action. The camera work captured the intensity of the matches, and the editing created compelling storylines that kept viewers invested. Jim Ross, who would later become the voice of WWE, cut his teeth in Mid-South. His passionate, believable commentary style developed during these years. Ross understood how to sell the drama and make viewers care about the outcomes. His work in Mid-South established him as one of wrestling's premier announcers and opened doors for his legendary career. The booking in Mid-South was consistently logical and compelling. Watts understood that wrestling worked best when it made sense. Faces and heels were clearly defined. Actions had consequences. Victories and defeats mattered. This approach created a sense of legitimacy that made the product feel important. Fans believed in what they were watching because the presentation demanded to be taken seriously. One of Mid-South's most famous angles involved the Freebirds and Junkyard Dog. After months of escalating violence, the Freebirds attacked JYD and injured his eye. The angle was presented as a legitimate injury, with news reports and medical updates adding realism. When Junkyard Dog returned wearing an eye patch, the crowd's reaction was explosive. The eventual payoff, with JYD getting revenge, was cathartic and satisfying. Another legendary storyline involved the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express. The feud included cage matches, stretcher matches, and every stipulation imaginable. Each encounter raised the stakes, and the violence felt genuine. The emotional investment fans had in these teams made every match an event. When the Express finally triumphed, the celebration felt earned and meaningful. Mid-South also featured incredible singles feuds. Ted DiBiase's battles with various heels showcased his versatility. His matches with Jake Roberts were psychological masterpieces. His encounters with Butch Reed were athletic showcases. DiBiase's ability to adapt to any opponent made him invaluable to the territory's success. The promotion's approach to championships reinforced their legitimacy. The North American Heavyweight Championship was treated as a prestigious prize. Title changes were rare and meaningful. Champions defended regularly against credible challengers. This approach made the belt feel important, and title matches carried genuine drama because fans believed the championship could change hands. Terry Taylor emerged as one of Mid-South's brightest young stars. His good looks and technical ability made him a natural babyface. Taylor's matches were consistently excellent, and his feuds with the territory's top heels established him as a main event talent. His later heel turn demonstrated his range and added depth to his character. Steve Williams, later known as Dr. Death, began his legendary career in Mid-South. His amateur wrestling background and legitimate toughness fit perfectly with Watts' vision. Williams' matches were stiff and intense, and his presence added credibility to the roster. His battles with various monsters and brawlers were brutal and compelling. The Junkyard Dog's eventual departure to the WWF in 1984 was a significant loss for Mid-South, but the territory continued to thrive. New stars emerged, and the quality of the product remained high. Watts' ability to develop talent and create compelling storylines kept fans engaged even as the roster evolved. In 1986, Watts made a bold decision. He rebranded Mid-South Wrestling as the Universal Wrestling Federation, with ambitions of national expansion. The UWF maintained the territory's emphasis on athletic competition and logical storytelling. The roster remained strong, and the production values improved. However, the landscape of professional wrestling was changing. The WWF, under Vince McMahon, was aggressively expanding nationally. McMahon's deep pockets and national television deals made it difficult for regional promotions to compete. The UWF struggled financially despite producing excellent wrestling. The costs of national expansion were enormous, and the revenue couldn't keep pace. In 1987, Watts made the difficult decision to sell the UWF to Jim Crockett Promotions. The sale marked the end of an era. Many UWF wrestlers transitioned to Crockett's organization, which would later become WCW. The Mid-South style and philosophy influenced these promotions, but the unique identity of the territory was lost. The legacy of Mid-South wrestling extends far beyond its years of operation. The promotion's emphasis on athletic competition and logical storytelling influenced generations of wrestlers and promoters. The stars who emerged from Mid-South went on to legendary careers. The matches and angles created during these years are still studied and celebrated by wrestling fans and historians. Bill Watts' influence on professional wrestling cannot be overstated. His booking philosophy, his emphasis on realism, and his ability to develop talent set standards that remain relevant today. Many of wrestling's greatest minds, including Jim Ross, cite Watts as a major influence on their approach to the business. The wrestlers who passed through Mid-South became legends. Junkyard Dog, Ted DiBiase, Jake Roberts, Jim Duggan, the Freebirds, the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express, and countless others all honed their craft in this territory. The skills they developed and the lessons they learned in Mid-South served them throughout their careers. The territory's influence can be seen in modern wrestling. The emphasis on long-term storytelling, the importance of making matches feel legitimate, and the value of creating emotional investment in characters and feuds all trace back to Mid-South's approach. Promotions that prioritize these elements are following in the footsteps of Bill Watts in his revolutionary territory. For fans who experienced Mid-South wrestling during its heyday, the memories remain vivid. The intensity of the matches, the passion of the crowds, and the quality of the storytelling created experiences that transcended entertainment. These weren't just wrestling shows. They were communal events that brought people together and created lasting memories. The Irish McNeil Boys Club, the Superdome, and the various arenas throughout Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Mississippi witnessed history. The matches that took place in these venues set standards for excellence. The crowds that filled these buildings created atmospheres that modern wrestling still tries to replicate. Mid-South wrestling proved that regional wrestling could be artistically and commercially successful. The promotion demonstrated that fans would support quality wrestling presented with integrity. The territory's success showed that you didn't need national television or massive budgets to create compelling wrestling. You needed talented performers, logical storytelling, and respect for your audience. The end of Mid-South wrestling was part of a larger shift in professional wrestling. The territorial system that had sustained the business for decades was collapsing. National promotions were replacing regional territories. The intimate connection between local promotions and their communities was being lost. Mid-South's closure symbolized the end of an era in wrestling history. However, the spirit of Mid-South wrestling lives on. Independent promotions that emphasize athletic competition and logical storytelling are carrying the torch. Wrestlers who study the history of the business learn from Mid-South's matches and angles. Fans who appreciate quality wrestling recognize the territory's contributions to the art form. The stories from Mid-South wrestling continue to be told. Documentaries, books, and podcasts explore the territory's history and impact. Wrestlers who worked for the promotion share their memories and experiences. These stories preserve the legacy and ensure that future generations understand Mid-South's importance. In the pantheon of professional wrestling territories, Mid-South wrestling stands among the greatest. Its influence on the business, its roster of legendary talent, and its commitment to quality made it special. From 1979 to 1986, Bill Watts and his promotion showed the world what wrestling could be when done right. The history of Mid-South wrestling is a reminder of what made territorial wrestling great. The connection with local communities, the development of talent, the emphasis on storytelling, and the respect for the audience created something special. While the territory system is gone, the lessons and legacy of Mid-South Wrestling remain relevant and influential. As we look back on the history of professional wrestling, Mid-South Wrestling deserves recognition as one of the most important and influential promotions ever. The stars it created, the matches it produced, and the standards it set continue to resonate throughout the wrestling world. This is the legacy of Mid-South Wrestling, a territory that changed the business and left an indelible mark on professional wrestling history. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Mid-South Wrestling, please subscribe for more wrestling documentaries exploring the territories, legends, and stories that shaped this incredible business. Thanks for watching.